There's loads of tricks that companies will do to like pad it out, make it cheaper. In the world of protein, the classic one is amino spiking. So they're like, 10 grams of added BCA. And then they'll improve their margin, but still be able to make the label claim. And that's why knowing the research is really important. How many people take supplements are like, yeah, so-and-so on Instagram said, yeah, great. And then they spent 35 quid, pot turns up and the pot's just useless. They're just throwing the money down the toilet.
My dad was like, what are you taking? So I said, it's protein powder, Dad. He said, well, it's not been around. It's only been around 5 years. How can it, there's not enough study. Cigarettes were healthy once for us. Having cocaine in your Coca-Cola was healthy once for us. When I'm having this protein powder, your awesome protein powder, what's it physically made out of to get the protein?
Organic pea, rice, cocoa, sweetener, salt, an agent that basically doesn't make sure it kind of clumps. That's it. 6 ingredients.
Nothing else.
That's it.
Is there any regulation in the supplement industry? Or can anyone just package any shit and sell it?
The reality is anyone can package anything and sell it.
Ben.
Hello.
Awesome to have you on the podcast.
Awesome to be here.
For those of you who just tuned in, we're talking about how much I use the word awesome. And obviously Ben's brand, you'll find out shortly, is called Awesome. So we're going to see who can say it the most.
Comps on.
Thanks for travelling down, mate, genuinely. I know
Thank
it's
you.
been a bit of a pig of a journey.
I'm excited to talk.
Let's take it back, as with all the guests, a little bit about background, childhood, upbringing, to sort of set the scene of who you are and maybe where all your future stuff came from.
Yeah. Very fortunate as a young kid to go to private school. That was cool. Obviously, there's huge benefits to that level of education. So when I was 9, I went to boarding school. So that was a major life event. And then my parents divorced when I was 11.
Where are you from? Where are we talking now?
Mate, lived everywhere because my dad was in the military. So we moved like every 18 months
Posted
to 2
around.
years. Yeah. Portsmouth, lived there twice, South Sea.
A lot of military there.
Yeah. Lived in St. Ives, St. Neots, Cambridgeshire, bounced around. And then when my parents got divorced, I went to a military school. So
Military boarding school?
Yeah, so this is awesome of my mum. 1-0. She was like, I really want to try and keep him in private school. So she got a job at a school as a house matron. And I then went to that school on the cheap seats.
Wow.
So I only ever went to military school or boarding school because I got like in the cheap seat kind of door, which is cool, but work the system, why not?
What a legend.
She's a legend. So she moved us to the school. So we lived on campus the whole time I was at boarding school. So obviously it's a really weird environment, military school. It's extremely strict, extremely regimented. You got to go out on parade at the weekend. You got to polish your shoes every day. You got to wear a uniform. It's all like crusty and stuff.
Is it boys only?
No, it's mixed.
Mixed.
In a boys only house, boarding house.
Okay.
So it's like 60 boys in a house scrapping about all the time. But, the education was brilliant. But it was a tough environment. I never fit in. So I've always thought a bit differently, got diagnosed with ADHD when I went to university, was always in the rebellious crowd because, at school, especially at military, it was all about science and maths and English, like all that stuff. And I was rubbish, all of that stuff. I wanted to do like theatre, the arts, creative stuff. Like, my brain was just a bit out there. So all the way through school, it was like, you're rubbish, you're not applying yourself, all the rest of it. Luckily at GCSE, you get to choose quite a lot of your subjects. So I then chose the creative stuff. Then did the same at A-level. So anyway, left military school at 18, left obese, had IBS, had asthma, eczema, like...
Flipping out.
Like it was, tough at times. Like the bullying was very tough I was only one of 2 fat kids in the whole school. And for me, I then had a choice as an adult at the age of 18 to like sort myself out. And I saw an opportunity, and the opportunity came that I, at the time, was going to go into the performing arts field. So I'd always loved theatre.
Okay.
And I wanted to go to drama school. So I was doing auditions for like RADA, all that kind of stuff in London. And failure. And I was like, well, why am I getting all this rejection? Why can't I get in? And there was a point where I just had to look at myself in the mirror and I was like, well, perhaps it's me. Like I can blame the system, I can, whatever. but perhaps it's me. So I then kind of went on this journey of trying to get fitter and healthier, and it wasn't really working. I didn't really get very many good results.
So when you were auditioning, you were still the overweight you?
Yes.
I was like not the new you,
16 stone, at the time. So I went down to 10.5 stone after the weight loss journey, and I'm about 13 and a half now.
Awesome.
All kinds of awesome. So yeah, look, the journey was problematic, and I remember having an argument with my brother in the kitchen one day, and he said, because I was bullying him, as older brothers do. I'm the older brother by 4.5 years, and he sort of said, you're not so perfect, you keep doing all this stuff, nothing's working, like, what are you doing? At that point, that was another one of those hard moments where someone holds the mirror up to your face and you're like, I need to sort this shit out. So I said, well, where do people go to get fit and healthy? So I joined a gym, happened to join a good gym. It was a David Lloyd. It was nice. And fell in the hands of a good trainer. And he gave me like a really good kind of baptism of fire in the gym and set me straight. Didn't make anything complicated. He also said, go and read this book, ordered it, read it within the space of a couple of weeks, applied it, lost 5.5 stone in about 6 months. And that personal transformation then led to like what I would describe as all the other sort of transformations that I continue to try and make in my life. So it was kind of like a drug. Like getting fit was a drug that I wanted to keep taking every day. And I've never put on more than about half a stone my whole adult life, because that memory of being obese and unhappy and bullied and all the rest of it, it sits there. But like, I don't want that. Like, I love what is now. So that's what got me into the world of health and fitness. And that was like 17 odd years ago now.
Let's take it back and break it down a little bit. So firstly, boarding military school. I'm quite interested in that. Are you still taught like a normal school, or are they teaching you, they're not teaching you any firearm or any physical fitness different to a normal school, or they are? Yeah,
you used to do, it was called CCA, like Combat Cadet something. And on a Monday afternoon, you'd all split off into RAF, Army, Navy, whatever the other one is, Marines. And then I kept bouncing around them because I kept like failing in all of them. So they created this separate group called, I can't remember, but basically they made a project for us because we couldn't cope with all the other things. And we ended up building an assault course at the back of like the kind of school.
So it's regular curriculum that I'd get at my school, I would have got.
Yeah.
But are they effectively, I don't know if grooming is the right word, but preparing you to join the military after? Is that the kind of like mindset of the school?
Yeah, soft skills, yeah.
And how often do you get to go home to your parents and your family?
Well, my mum lived there, so I got to like literally nip in.
That's good.
Didn't really see my dad much at all, like here and there.
Brother,
he was at the school for the first 2 years, and then my mum couldn't afford to have us both in. So I got chosen to stay. Bit awkward in the family dinner table scenario.
Is he still upset about that?
He says he's not.
He's listening.
So he went to like a local high school, and I stayed in. Stayed in until 18.
Wow. And then parents broke up when you were 9.
11.
11, sorry.
Yeah.
11. Oh, you went to school at 9, boarding school at 9.
Yeah.
What was that like?
Yeah, tough. Like, you don't understand it. It's like, why? Why can't you just stay together? Like, so I don't have a lot of memory. I think because it's quite painful, you block it out as a kid because you want to move on quickly from it.
Because 11, normally you'd remember quite a lot from that age.
Yeah.
Wouldn't you?
I remember it happening, like they sat us down in the living room and there was like tea and biscuits, and it all felt like me and your dad had got to talk to you about something. And I'm like, Mum and Dad never do this. Like, probably.
Yeah.
So they switched off Nickelodeon. Remember Nickelodeon?
Yeah, I love Nickelodeon.
Good times.
Awesome.
Keenan and Kel.
That was awesome.
And then it all happened really quickly because like they had to get rid of the house because we were in a military house. So like within a couple of months we were at a new school, new environment, new everything. So it's just like crack on.
But because they split, does that mean what happens with your mum and home housing? Does the military still
she
support
didn't have
that?
one. She's never had one. So that's another reason why she had to find a job with a live-in like situation.
Bless her.
So she got a 1-bedroom flat as part of the job, and then her and my brother slept in the 1-bedroom together.
Wow.
While I was over the other side enjoying
getting beasted.
Full catering.
Getting beasted. Growing up, I feel we're subliminally programmed by what our parents do, right? If you look, generally a lawyer's kid becomes a lawyer, a police officer's kid becomes a police officer. Now, a military's kid generally becomes goes in the military. I'm stereotyping, but
Yeah, of course.
that's like the statistics. You obviously haven't taken that route.
Mm-hmm.
What's that down to? Is that down to being forced at a military boarding school? Is that down to your relationship with your dad? Is that down to the breakup with your mum? Do you know, have you ever thought about that?
Yeah, thought about it plenty. I didn't fit the mold, and I didn't like how they kept trying to force me into the mold. So I obviously...
In what sense you didn't fit the mold? Just being overweight and unfit?
A bit,
or
but
mindset?
I was just like quite a creative mind. And military, you kind of have to conform because that's almost the job. It's like, we need you to go and like manage this control room or this system or go and do, like, that's the job. So I didn't really fit. I thought very differently. And kind of like you, before we came on air, you were like, I'm the why guy. I'm similar. I was like, why am I doing this? They're like, go and run up that hill. And I'm like, why?
They must have gone,
Like,
shut up and
like,
run.
Why am I running up the hill? I don't want it. Can't we at least play football or something? Like, so it's dynamic. So I didn't fit in. And then because they kept trying to like force me, I started to hate the system. And then the system like hated me back. So I was always getting suspended, like internal suspension.
Yeah.
I was always having to do crappy jobs like polish the radiators because I'd, done whatever. So yeah, it kind of, the system made me hate it. So you either conform or you flip, and I just flipped. I then got into kind of like the arts and really enjoyed it. I enjoyed expression and being able to entertain people and make people like feel a certain way. Like, I love being on stage and like 300 people laughed at, like a joke you said. That's a hugely dopaminergic kind of situation. So I kind of like was then drawn and sucked into that world. I don't do it anymore. But luckily, we live in a world now where we can podcast and do things like that. So I'm kind of performing in a different way, but as myself.
Our whole life's a performance, isn't it?
Yeah.
To an extent.
Yeah.
We're all acting, really.
Yeah.
Because does anyone really know what we think in the deep, dark corners of our mind? Do we ever share that with our best friends, our wives? Probably not, if we're being honest.
And do many of us know what we're doing half the time? Like making it up as we go along?
Yeah. I find it interesting. So we spoke in the car, obviously, on the way here a little bit about this being overweight, being bullied, this kind of stuff. And then enjoying performing arts and enjoying drama and enjoying bringing joy to people. Is there an element of, because I've been through something similar, which I'm explaining, fitting in? We talked about fitting in. Do you think your love for the gym, your love for looking good, feeling good, performing, making people laugh, even podcasting, all this kind of stuff that's like brings joy to others, is that from a fitting in element, do you reckon, because of the bullying as a kid?
So initially, I don't think it was a case of fitting in. I think it was a case of having some level of acceptance. Because if they could turn up to the school play and I could make them laugh for an hour, they accepted me. And then for the next couple of days, they were like, oh, you're amazing, you were this. And then like the bullying stopped for a week. And then it was like back to the bullying. So it was almost like I was finding a way to be accepted more than anything. The fitness thing, I suppose, is a bit different. Like, I got fit for myself because I wanted to better myself. But then there was secondary benefits. So, the reality is if you become really fit and kind of athletic looking, you're probably only in a crowd of like 5 to 3 to 2% of people, because not many people go to the gym or like kind of have that goals. And I'm not saying people should. So then you start to kind of be admired a little bit, like, oh, you're really like fit and muscular and all the rest of it. And then that kind of like it feeds it even more. And then you kind of elevate yourself. And I enjoyed that because I'd never, ever felt that, because at school it was always like, whatever, Ben, you're fat, you're shit at football, whatever. So I was like, well, I'm going to keep doing this because I now have value in the world where I've never had that. It's
amazing that you've had that sort of resilient mind at such a young age. Because how old are you when you made that change from, right, I'm going to lose the weight, I'm going to get fit? How old are we talking there? 18?
So I suppose, this is the power of environment. And I suppose I want to help people understand this, because when I was 18, my parents didn't live in the UK. They lived, and then they moved quickly. So I think they moved to China.
Okay.
So my mum remarried at that point, and then her partner got a job in China as a teacher, and she went because I'd finished school. So at that point she was like, I've got no reason to stay at the school anymore. I've done my bit.
So you were homeless at 18, effectively? As in you had
kind of. My parents had a house, so I was able to live in the house with his sons and one other people. So it was a biggish 5-bedroom house with 5 teenagers living in it, all on their own.
No adult?
No adult.
Well, you're all adults technically, but yeah.
Yeah, technically. So I went to China for a bit. Didn't enjoy it. And then kind of went home, and I was like, well, I now need to make sense of my life. So I was trying to go to drama school, was trying to do the fitness thing. But the good thing at that point is I was able to shape my new environment. And I didn't like my old environment. I didn't like my old friends. I didn't like my old way of life. So I was like, I want a new way of life. So I joined a gym. So I was now in an environment where there was people that were trying to better themselves, get fit. They were motivated. They were affluent as well. Because the David Lloyd gym's a premium gym. It's like 80 quid a month.
Yeah.
So I'm now in like the top 10% demographic of, my area. And then I sort of, fell into the fitness side of things and fell into personal training. And then when you're a personal trainer, you're generally your services are getting bought by people that have the top salary. So all of a sudden I was in quite an aspirational kind of environment. So I was able to kind of decide my future. And because I knew what I didn't want, I started to create what I did want, but didn't have any external influences. I didn't have any friends going, you can't do that. You shouldn't do that. You're not good enough. Because I literally had no friends. So I had to rebuild my friendship group, rebuild everything. And that was a good thing for me. I just leaned into it and just sort of slowly built myself up again.
How do you get there though at that age? That's so like the awareness is insane. To be able to, I'm just thinking when you were talking 18, right? You're 18?
Yes.
19?
Yeah.
At the time, not now.
Yeah.
I'm thinking when I was 18, I had no awareness of that. I had no real rudder, no real direction. But I feel like that you're so young and you've managed to sort of, something in you's gone, right, this is what I'm doing, and you've gone 110% at it. Are you like that with everything?
I was up until 2 years ago, yeah. That's another topic for another day.
Do you see what I mean?
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
got like
So
18 years old. I think most lads don't know what they're doing.
So this is the benefit of boarding school. It taught you the benefit of discipline. I was able to see, so at boarding school, you are again surrounded by the top 5% of people with money, jobs, careers, because they're all earning 100 whatever grand a year.
Yeah.
So I was constantly seeing all these parents getting, because even in the early days, I didn't ever like leave the school. Like, so sometimes my parents didn't come and collect me. I'd have to like stay at the school at the weekend. And they'd turn up in their Range Rovers and all the rest of it. And so was like, he was a business owner. He was a lawyer. So you're constantly getting all these messages that if I do these things kind of that the school are asking me, be disciplined, study hard, all the rest of it, I can get that. So that's the benefit of the early exposure of being exposed to. So we were just a really normal middle class family. Like my dad, probably a decent job, 40 grand a year in the military or whatever.
And in those days, it's good.
Yeah. But I was looking at everyone that was earning 100, 200 grand a year. And I was like, I want some of that. Because as a kid, we didn't really go on holiday that much, because dad was either away, they didn't value paying it, all the rest of it. So I kind of was constantly getting this exposure to what most people want, which is security, affluence. I know we don't like to admit this as people, but power.
Yeah.
So I was like, I'm going to aspire to that. And it was bubbling inside me. I didn't know how to do it, but I was willing to figure it out and just kind of chip it away at it.
I mean, that's incredible. Genuinely, really, really good. I just keep thinking back to what I was up to at 18. Don't get me wrong, I had a flair of business always with me through nurture from a young age, but I didn't think I was as like, I used to drop stuff halfway quite a lot. That was where I had a short attention span. I just could never follow things through. I really struggled. That's come like later in my life. And even now I sort of battle against that. I'll get into something, get quite good at it quite quickly, and then move on.
But I'll probably be equally as fascinated by what you were doing at 18 and all the things that, met. But, what we did is we were here, we came in at 18, we went like this, and then we're sitting across the table, similar ages, right? You're 34, I'm 36. Yeah. We've both come together, we're sat on a podcast, we're both business owners, we're both, motivated people, we're quite self-actualized, we love learning. Like, we're both now quite similar, but we came from such different backgrounds, but the journey brought us to quite a similar point. And I think that should be empowering for anyone listening, because it's like, whatever your background, you have choices you can make to better yourself. The problem is, are you willing to make a 10-year journey, not a 6-month journey? And that's probably part of the reason that people don't see the benefit of some of the changes, because they're not going to get the upside quickly. Yeah. But it's a 10-year journey. When I sit down with people and I'm like, how would you like to be, money's a good thing to talk about. how would you like to be earning 50 grand a year in 5 years' time? Oh, I'd love that. Cool. That's really easily done. You're earning 30 grand a year at the moment. So that means you need to do this in management in your job. Then you need to get promoted to this. And that's a really easy ladder. But no one thinks 5 years in advance. They're always like, well, tomorrow, I just missed out on the promotion. So like, what's the point? I'm just going to stay where I'm at. It's like, no. You've got to create these ladders in your life. And I think, again, that's the benefit of like the military. It teaches you that ladder system because you have that clear line of progression. Like if you in the military wanted to be a station commander at the age of 40, you can do that if you take those steps.
Yeah.
And I've always thought like that in my life. I've always thought in these kind of like 2 to 3 year stages of like, this is the journey that I've got to go on. So these are the skills that I need to learn now to get me there. So even when I graduated from uni, I didn't feel I had the skills to get to where I wanted to be. So I was like, cool, I want to work in elite sport as a sports nutritionist. What do I need to do? So I went and found the piece of paper that would get me there and studied and did that course. It got me into elite sport. Funnily enough, I just ended up hating it and not carrying on anyway. But
I think it's important to have your own journey as well, right? I think most people probably don't get to where they want to get because they're following someone else's journey or they're looking at the comparison piece. Yeah. They're probably looking going, I need to do what that guy's done. Doesn't really work like that because you've got to have your reason as to why you really want it. So your driver, I mean, let's talk about the 5.5 stone loss. 5.5 stone in weight you lost. In how long?
6 months. Like it was rapid.
I mean, incredible achievement. And the fact that you've managed to keep it off is good as well because sometimes those drastic weight losses, as you'll know probably better than me, are not as sustainable.
Yep.
You've got to have such a strong driver to be able to stay at that. It's minging walking into a gym for the first time from every angle, whether you're overweight, whether it's intimidating, whether you've never trained, and then to stay there grinding. I mean, did you get a PT? How did that whole come about?
No, I got that. You know, everyone gets an induction when they go to the gym. So I did the induction, got the book. Now and again, I'd like ask that same trainer, like, can you help me here? But it just started the journey. So I started reading fitness books. So again,
self-development.
I just took that attitude towards like, well, if that book changed that much for me, imagine what the next book could do. Imagine what the next. And that's why I've probably read over 300 books in my life because you just see the value of that level of knowledge.
Yeah. We were saying earlier, weren't we? I discovered reading quite late. I always thought of reading, I'm going to read when I'm retired. You know, that was kind of my mindset. Yeah. And then I thought when COVID came, just probably about a year before COVID, to be fair, I started reading, and now I've got this weird anxiety where I'm like, there's not enough years in my life to read all the books I want to read. Yeah. And what's the point of having that knowledge at 70, sat on the beach, if you're lucky to get there in your life?
Yeah.
You need it now. I needed it probably at 18, if I'm completely honest, but I missed it. Long COVID.
Wouldn't recommend it.
You had quite a bad experience with this, right?
I did, yeah.
When did you get COVID?
I think around July 2020. So
early on.
Yeah, right early on. We were hunkered down. We had our first child, but we had like a birthday party in our garden, family around, that kind of stuff.
Illegally?
No, that was when you were allowed like 6 people in your garden kind of thing. Anyway, let's not get the police involved, all right? Let's keep
Kids
it
are
chill.
half, so you can have 12 people if they're only little. Half people, aren't they?
I got like a coldy thing. Mrs. lost her taste buds, but we didn't do anything because, again, the narrative at that point in time was like stay at home, you know, whatever. And then we just had our first child, so our life was an absolute chaos. We weren't sleeping. We just put it down to just being really run down. And then I wasn't quite getting that good a recovery in my fit. I was like, I'm pretty gassed. But then I wasn't sleeping very good because I had a young child and stuff. And then I did a charity challenge on a bike, and I couldn't get back to fitness for a couple of weeks. I was like, this is really weird. Anyway, I ended up doing another charity challenge where we tried to simulate the height of Everest going up a hill in our local town because we were meant to go and support this guy.
Did you post that today? Was that what you posted last night or today?
Yeah, so tomorrow is the 2-year anniversary of me getting long COVID. So today is the day.
I saw it on your Instagram.
Remembrance. So today, us recording this is Remembrance Day.
Yeah.
That was the day we did the challenge.
Yeah.
So we did it in aid of that. And because of COVID, we couldn't go and do the challenge in Scotland. Is it Scotland? He was doing Ben Nevis. Is it Scotland?
Somewhere.
Anyway, we're not geography.
One of the 3 peaks.
So we were meant to replicate this Everest challenge. Anyway, we did this 1.5 hour walk up and down a hill. And the next day I just couldn't get out of bed. And I was like, oh my God, I'm a fit guy. My recovery is not this bad. And then it just went on. Weeks passed. And I was like, this is really weird. Couldn't get out of bed. Felt like I was wearing like an iron suit. Like I was just pinned to the bed. Headache, depressed, low, didn't want to do anything. And then obviously this long COVID thing sort of started to be talked about. So I was like, oh, this is weird. And I sort of tried to track back. And then at that point in time, long COVID, everyone was just like, rest. Hopefully you'll be okay. That wasn't a good enough answer for me. So I then went on a personal journey of like, right, who do I know that can help me recover? So I went to a guy that lives very close to me. He's an osteopath, but he's also a Wim Hof breathing instructor, and he's a very holistic kind of practitioner. And I was like, all I know is I need support on this journey because I am fucked and I don't know how to get out of my own situation. Yeah. So I went and he was both a support to me and gave me some practical things. And it was mainly like breathing work that we did in the early days. And yeah, it went on for about 14, 16 months, but then the symptoms didn't quite fully clear, but I didn't feel that it was a problem anymore, like intuitively, because many symptoms can overlap, right, with certain disorders. That's right. So that's when I got my blood work redone. And I was like, fucking hell, my testosterone's really low. And then did my blood work again. I was like, well, it's still really low. So I
What's low, out of interest? What was low? Do you remember
that point of test, it was 14.5.
Yeah, that is low for your
Previously
age.
Was 20.5. So I've never had that. I wouldn't describe myself as someone having high testosterone. Even when I was at uni, sometimes I'd really struggle with recovery, struggle a little bit with erectile dysfunction, but not bad, just intermittent. And I would say it coincided with if I was like playing tons of sport and going to the gym, then it would show up. And then if I backed off, then it'd be all right. So kind of, the recovery thing. So I worked with a guy that said, look, let's take some HCG for a little bit. That should shortcut the system and show if the testosterone's a problem. So we retested and then it went down to 13.5 and he was like, oh, you need TRT. I was like, I need a second opinion. I'm not just like diving into this. And that's when I ended up watching your podcast. So a friend sent it to me with Dr. Robert Stevens. Had a chat with him and he was like, yeah, I think you need TRT. Like you're all over the place. And I was like, but I'm not really low. Can I do it naturally? And kind of went down that whole kind of journey. So yeah, it took me another 6 months to kind of get to that kind of diagnosis. And I suppose as a point of recording this, I think I've been on TRT for 2 months. But mate, darkest 2 years of my life. Like to be in that cloud where you don't even feel human. I can't describe it. Like it's horrible, but it's been funny because a lot of women have messaged me and said, now you know what the menopause feels like. Kind of just like living in that cloud. Yeah. And I'm like,
I spoke about it on another episode.
Yeah, I do. Like I know, but yeah, really dark time,
it's
especially
like a male menopause.
Yeah, menopause.
Menopause,
But I had 2 young kids. Like first time being a dad. Running a business through a pandemic. Being a lifeline for everyone. Because I'm quite a I wouldn't say I am a supportive person. I'm too good sometimes at taking on other people's problems and trying to like help them kind of solve it. And I think that's probably a coach trait. Like even on an Instagram direct message, like someone's messaging me, I'm like, I can help this guy. Whereas I maybe shouldn't. I should be focusing on my own stuff. Yeah. Like it's their problems to deal with. Anyway, so on top of that and the new kids and all the rest of it, it was a pretty dark time.
You've got that long COVID thing. So was it partly long COVID and partly you actually discovered that you've got a testosterone deficiency? Or do you think
that's the thing? It all overlapped, and I kept going to the NHS.
It's hard to see which one was the reason.
Yeah, so the NHS were like, well, your neutrophils are really low, so you've still got a present infection. So that would have indicated that I still had long COVID. Yeah.
Mine are still low now.
Your
I had a blood test a month ago, still in the red.
Oh shit.
Yeah.
So mine have only just come back up. It's taken 2 years for them to come back up. That's mad. It's scary. I'm hearing some scary stuff that have got people that have got COVID and they're like, now I've got this.
I'm a bit of a, I don't know if hypochondriac. My wife will say I'm a hypochondriac. But I'm a data man and I'm like, I like logic and facts and data. And so for me, and I also I prefer prevention as opposed to cure.
Of course.
So like if after I had COVID, I felt like my heart rate was up when I was running and I couldn't breathe as deep. I genuinely couldn't breathe in as deep, even like certain sports I was doing. And most people would have just fobbed that off. Sounds like you fobbed it off for a little bit. But I as soon as I have a little bit of that, I think, well, I'm fortunate enough. Why don't I just go and get it checked out? Who knows? Yep. So I went to the doctor. I went to the private doctor because obviously the NHS was swamped at the time. And I thought, do you know what? This is in my head. I don't really want to use resources like that. Yep. I went and said, I need a lung function test. Something's wrong with me. I can't breathe, And I've broken 2 ribs previously. So I thought, I wonder whether I've done something and they're kind of like lodged in weird. I went and had a lung function test, an X-ray, a CT and a thing. And the doctor was like, are you a hypochondriac? I was like, no, I'm struggling. He goes, mate, he actually went, he was a young doctor, he's a triathlete. He was like, get out of my office. I said, why? He goes, you're 140% function for your age. He said, you've got a biological age of 20 in your lungs. He said, you can breathe out 10 litres per second. He goes, you like athlete level. So get out. And like literally that was winding me up. He said, stop wasting my time and stop wasting your money. Yeah. But sometimes there's a physiological issue that you had, and I've had similar. I went for a stage of 3 or 4 years with low testosterone, didn't know what it was. It was an extremely dark time as well. Yeah. And sometimes you just need someone that feels like they know what they're talking about to tell you it's going to be okay. Yep. That's that kind of like human instinct in us. An expert said I'm fine. So when I left there, guess what happened? All my breathing issues went away. My heart rate dropped again. So I think. Yeah. But it was always okay. Yeah. I was playing up in my own head until a professional stood across from me and said, you're 100. Now I'm walking down the street thinking, I'm a machine. Nothing's going to happen to me, sort of thing. The TRT journey is a really, really interesting one. I've been on it and I feel like it's growing in the UK. It's not as recognised in the UK. I know we've had this conversation before. I feel like Rob's doing amazing stuff. He's the only one I know down here doing it. I don't know who else is doing it where, but that's completely changed my life. When testosterone's low in a guy, like you're down, you're feeling down, you're feeling depressed, and you can't break out of it. It's not about talking. Yeah, no. It's a physiological imbalance that needs fixing.
I was doing everything. I was having therapy, I was doing everything. And then when I went on TRT, it was good because all those things started to work even more. But like within a week, I was like, oh my God.
I'm brand new.
No, I'm back. Like you just go from a 4 out of 10 to a 9.5 out of 10 so quickly.
Mood-wise is incredible. Yeah. It's incredible.
Yeah. And all the people on the bench will be like, oh, you guys have, you're fitness guys, testosterone, physical health. I'm like, but all the benefits are in the mind, are in the well-being. Yeah, you get a small benefit with like, muscle mass. Like I definitely feel just like a bit, I'm going to say fuller in terms of my muscle. I just feel a bit more athletic. But all of the benefits are,
you look good.
Thanks, babe.
You look awesome.
Thank you. On all.
I'm way ahead of you. You've not even realised. What was I going to say? Let's talk about awesome.
If you want.
Mr. Awesome, as I called you earlier.
Yep.
So you've created this protein supplement brand, I should say. Talk to me about that. Why and how did that come about? Did you identify a gap in the market because you're a PT, or has it always been a dream of yours to do that?
So I've always worked in nutrition. Naturally, people go, oh, what supplements do you recommend? So I'd always worked with a company to recommend. And I worked with a nice little company, real great ethos. And then it just started to get a little bit too kind of unresearched based, the company. And the guy was like, do you know what? We're going to sell CLA because it just sells and we need kind of money. And like all of their values just sort of started to whittle in the face of money. So I was then being asked to promote all this stuff without the research behind it. I was creating more and more distance between myself and the company. And it was a shame because we'd been working with each other for a good 3 or 4 years, had a strong relationship. And I then started to look around and I was like, well, why don't I form a partnership with a different supplement company? But at the time, they were all doing the same stuff. Everyone was selling whey protein, CLA, multivitamins, loads of like 40% of their products just weren't research backed. And I was like, wow, this is tough. I was like, and then in my naivety, I was like, how hard can it be to set up a supplement company? So, we all got round a table and I was like, I'm going to start a supplement company. Let's brainstorm a name. And just kind of went on that journey. Awesome came up because someone literally just said, you say awesome all the time. Why don't you just call it awesome supplement? So I deliberated on that for a while and I was like, actually, yeah, you're right. And it's really easy to name the products because we can just call it awesome protein, awesome multivitamin, awesome. So it just it kind of fell into place. And then I've got a real perfectionist trait. And I think that's kind of really just more of like an entrepreneurial thing where you just want to do things better than it's currently being done. So, for example, all of the vegan proteins on the market were just tasted garbage. Just tasted like sawdust with a little bit of cocoa powder, just like blown in.
They were horrendous, them early ones.
So I was like, it must be possible to make something that tastes really tasty.
You're not a vegan, are you?
I'm not vegan.
Okay, fine.
And that kind of commitment to just doing better, we made a really fucking good vegan protein. It's still incredible.
Yeah.
And
it's genuinely probably one of the best tasting ones I've had.
No, it is.
Oh, I've not tried them all.
And that really helped the business because that was a product that really stood out kind of in the market. So I wouldn't say we did well early. I mean, it took us like 4 years to turn a profit. It's really hard building a product-based business. You've got to keep buying product to feed demand, which was a really naive thing for me. But it's been a real interesting business journey. It's still extremely challenging. But
how do you... Yeah. There's two parts of it I'm interested in. One, because I'm the why guy, how on earth do you make your own protein? Now, what I mean is, are you white labeling? Is there a factory? Are you testing stuff? What are you telling them to put in it? Are you telling them not to put certain stuff in it? Do you see what I mean? Who's making it? Where's it made?
So you go to a supplement manufacturer.
UK-based?
UK-based, yeah. Well, originally, right at the beginning, we went to Belgium.
Okay.
Because Belgium had some of the best quality standards in the whole of Europe. So we started in Belgium. And then that was becoming quite a problematic relationship. So we moved some of our production to the UK, and then we moved all of it to the UK just before breakfast. Brexit.
Did the cost go up when you came to the UK?
A little bit, yeah. Yeah, they did. But we felt it was a move for future like brand security and supply chain security. So yeah, most contract manufacturers will have like a research and development arm within the business. So you work with them to like flavor it and tell them what you want and all the rest of it. So all of the formulas I've built through working in direct correlation with the research and then trying to flavor them to be, as awesome tasting as possible. So it's not complicated.
Interesting.
You can white label.
What about, I mean, the only reason, I've never done it with protein, but I looked into doing our own vodka when I first got into nightclubs. I thought, surely it can't be that hard. We sell the most amount of bottles of vodka than anything else. Yeah. Let's do it. And that proved, one, because of the duty. It was like at the time, I think £6 per bottle was just duty. So when you're buying a bottle of Smirnoff, say at £8, this is what blew my mind. £6 of that is tax.
Yeah.
So for £2, someone is researching that, making it, bottling it, labeling it, shipping it, and selling it to you.
Mental, isn't it?
What the fuck's in it? Like, how the hell do they do that?
Yeah.
So that's why I was asking about the protein thing, because obviously, surely there's regulation, there's guidelines, it's an edible product. You're putting it into your body. It's a drug. Not literally, but it's a thing. It's a supplement, I should say. Yeah. That's probably the better word. What about funding of that? How do you fund that?
So I had a business before that. Well, still do. That was called the BTN Academy. So that was an education business. In the education business, the margins are higher. So I used any profits that we had from that business and put it into Awesome Supplements. So Awesome Supplements never would have existed if I didn't have a previous profitable business.
Got you.
So that funded it for...
From being a PT, you then trained and set up the BTN Academy, which is a nutrition...
education company. So we teach people how to become qualified nutrition coaches.
Amazing. That's still going now?
Yeah, it's still going now. Coaching.
And then you've used some of that. There's no investment that has to go in or anything like that. You managed to self-fund also.
Self-funded, the whole way through. Wow. Apart from COVID, took the 50 grand bounce back loan or whatever.
Yeah. Well, most people did, I think. Yeah. That's a whole different topic.
When in Rome.
Yeah, that's a whole different topic. We won't go into that task force. Now, so your flagship product was vegan protein?
Yep.
I would say. That's how I actually found out about Awesome.
Yep.
Because when I started, I'm not vegan, but for some reason the whey proteins, maybe I battered it so much as a kid that now when I drink them, I bloat straight away. They make me extremely gassy.
Me too, yeah.
And one of my friends who's also a PT said, mate, have you ever tried vegan protein? And I was one of them dismissive kids at that age. I thought, fucking vegan protein, there's nothing in it.
Yeah.
It's like vegetables and stuff. Yeah. And he was like, no, like it's come a long way.
Yeah.
Have a look at it and it won't bloat you. And then I tried a load of them. I think there was Raw Sport that was quite powdery. But it was meant to be like the cleanest of loads of stuff in it. And there's all this kind of bits. And then someone, I can't remember who it was, maybe my partner or might have even been my Bill and my boxer mate. He said, try this Awesome, tastes really good.
Yeah.
It's unbelievable. Tasted insane.
Yeah.
And I didn't get any of the side effects that I'd get kind of from whey.
Yeah.
What else do you sell? Not whey protein?
No, we're now a 100% plant-based company. So the only protein we do is our awesome protein, which is plant-based, made from organic pea and rice. And then we've got an advanced multivitamin, plant-based omega-3, curcumin, so a joint formula. And then there's your traditional performance products, pre-workout, hydrate.
All plant-based?
All plant-based, yeah.
And are they all relatively clean, being honest?
Well, when you say clean, what do you mean? Again, it's quite because I'll say yes, and the audience will be, "Oh, great, it's clean." What the fuck does that mean?
Yeah, okay, let me rephrase that. So bad word. So
we put only what you need in it. So, for example,
pre-workout. Let's say pre-workout, because I recently spoke to a different supplement company, and they were arguing to me that they were the cleanest pre-workout or the healthiest pre-workout, or only in there what kind of what you said of what
claims
you need.
They can't substantiate. It's bullshit.
So I mean, there's no real long-term study on protein. Like when I started taking, what I mean by that is when I started taking protein when I was 18, my dad was like, "What are you taking?" So I was protein powder. He was like, "Yeah, but how do you know it's not unhealthy for you?" I said, "Well, it won't be. It's protein." He said, "Well, it's not been around. It's only been around 5 years. How can it? There's not enough study. Cigarettes were healthy once for us. Having cocaine in your Coca-Cola was healthy once for us." Do you understand what I'm trying to get at? So
I do.
Is there?
Keep going.
I'm playing devil's advocate. Is there? What is in this stuff? What is in it? So when I'm having this protein powder, your awesome protein powder.
Yeah.
What's it physically made out of to get the protein? Soy.
Organic pea.
Yeah.
Rice.
Yeah.
Cocoa.
Yeah.
Sweetener.
Yeah.
Salt.
Yeah.
An agent that basically doesn't make sure it kind of clumps.
Okay.
That's it. 6 ingredients.
Nothing else.
That's it. We don't need anything else in it. So there's loads of tricks that companies will do to like pad it out, make it cheaper. In the world of protein, the classic one is amino spiking. So they're like, 10 grams of added BCAAs, which means they can make the protein label claim, put less protein in it and put amino acids in it because it's cheaper. And then they'll improve their margin, but still be able to make the label claim. That's probably one of the biggest issues with this world of supplements. It's like, I can do these things to make a label claim, but on the back of the label, there's not what is on the front of the label, what the claim would initiate. And that's why knowing the research is really important, because how many people take supplements are like, yeah, so-and-so on Instagram said, yeah, great. And then they spent 35 quid, pot turns up and, the pot's just useless. They're just throwing the money down the toilet.
Yeah, it's interesting hearing it from you as well, because earlier you said something that stuck with me about like almost how strong your moral compass is. I can't remember what we were talking about earlier. But you said, the products you were selling, you didn't kind of agree with what they were doing anymore, so you pulled yourself away from them. So hearing it from you is probably easier to believe, because who do you trust? There's a million supplements companies out there. There's a million of every company out there.
Yeah.
They're all saying they're the best naturally. They're marketing. You're named awesome.
Yeah.
That for me would say like it's one of the better ones. What's that company like now? Talk to me, size, like how many people working?
It's tough because I run 3 companies, but the staff can quite often split their resources and time across the business.
I've got similar setups, yeah.
Cool. So in total, got currently 9 full-time staff, 10 probably by the end of the year, then 2 agencies and then freelance web guy. So fairly leanish. So yeah, not massive. I think the good thing about our ecosystem and why we can run pretty lean is we've got very fast, efficient customer service. Our website's very informative, so the actual inbound load on our system is very low.
Got you.
Most of the manpower ends up being in marketing in the business.
I was going to actually
we're all
ask
playing that game now. Like in the world of digital media, the fight is in marketing.
Yeah, I was actually going to ask you that. So you've done your research, you've created this protein brand, you've got your tub, you've had your first ones through, you've tasted them, you like it, you're happy with all the ingredients.
Yeah.
How the hell do you get to market? How do you stand out in a world? I mean, when did you launch Awesome?
2016, May 2016.
Okay. I'm trying to think what the big boys were then. Who were the big boys then?
Well, I mean, it depends how you compare us. So I wouldn't compare us to a lot of the, big names in the industry, which would be like Bulk, My Protein, PhD, that kind of stuff. I'd compare us more towards like the premium and the plant-based market, which is I'd say we're in. So like Vivo Life, Misfits, like they're they're competing against us on Google as well. So like we know that they're our competitors. Also price point. Like I can't compete with my protein. They're probably selling half the price, but it tastes like garbage. So, there's a quality scenario.
Yeah.
So it's a case of then, getting it in a warehouse and then, trying to get your message out there. The fortunate thing was I'd spent 6-7 years before that building up a personal brand. So at the time I had a #1 rated podcast, had 50,000 followers on it, Facebook and, et cetera. So, it didn't take me a huge amount of time to get a little bit of traction because I had,
already had the following. Yeah.
I'd already been kicking about.
And you got the data, I guess, from your academy as well, nutrition.
Yeah. That was a big business failing though. We didn't leverage that at all.
But the data element.
No. So we'd built up a really strong tribe and community of very high quality coaches. Now the best business decision for me would have been, you should create a really good loyalty program for all those coaches to go and recommend it to their clients. We didn't see that.
Yeah.
And that would have been probably a game changer.
Like a commission based, like
yeah.
Kind of like a Herbalife kind of vibe, but not as multi-level marketing.
Yeah. And I think my ego stopped me from doing that because I was like, well, everyone else that I dislike does that. So you take Herbalife, hugely financially incentivized to bring people on, all the rest of it. And I think I steered away from that because that's everything that I hated about the industry.
Yeah.
So
I'm with you on that.
I could have used the tactic in a more ethical way, but because other companies do it, I just didn't think about the tactic, and I regret that. But that was my naivety in business. So,
wow, 50,000 followers back in the day.
Probably about that. At the time, my podcast was getting 20,000-25,000 listens an episode. And that was good traction.
Really good.
Yeah.
Really good. I mean, I'm on episode, I guess this is 15, 14, and you've done it for 10 years, right?
10 years, yeah.
600 odd episodes?
685, yeah.
Wow.
It's a good journey.
You don't do things by halves.
No. Again, it's, you read any business book, they're just like, consistency. Keep going. I was just like, okay, I'm going to commit to Thursday. I'm going to do a podcast every Thursday.
What, record every Thursday? Is that what you did?
No, it went out on a Thursday, and 5:45 a.m. every Thursday a show went out. I missed 3 in 10 years. So it's just a case of like, if every business book is saying it, I should probably fucking do it.
At least try it.
Yeah. So and also I got early traction. I was the first ever health and fitness show in the UK.
Well, 10 years ago, yeah, you would have been first of a lot of stuff.
So I had first mover advantage. So I was like, well, don't squander that.
It's blown up. They've blown up a lot more probably since COVID, haven't they?
Yeah, and
there's loads
that's one reason I stopped my podcast. Is I was like, other people are doing it better than me now.
It's interesting because you go in so hard at stuff and you want to be the best at it, but then at that point you're like, can't be asked to level up. I'm just going to let it go.
Well,
You've just fallen out of love with it.
It's life circumstances. So 2 years ago, I had my first child. Lockdown happened. So everything was fine. I was podcasting. It was all good. It was a great way to connect. Then I got long COVID. Then the business was hard in 2021, like off the back of 2020, which was like a high e-com year. Yeah. Everyone was dancing. And then we went into 2021 and we were like, ooh, this year's not looking as good as 2020.
No.
I just couldn't turn up and do it. Like you're turning up today with energy for your show. You've got the setup. Like it's great. You're in it. And I wasn't in it. And I was dragging myself out of bed. Like it was just hard. And I thought if there's that much friction, you need to move on. And if the numbers are going down because I'm not turning up and I'm not delivering, then I'm not even doing myself, justice sort of doing it. So there was just a lot of reasons I hung up the boots.
I think.
And I wanted to reinvent it.
In business or in anything in life, I think one of the superpowers and something I probably struggle with is actually knowing when to quit, when to say no, when to stop, when to throw in good money after bad. But our egos doesn't allow us to do that.
Yeah.
But then sometimes I play devil's advocate. Like I've come in and recorded this. I'm spinning a lot of plates at the moment. I've got some mad shit going on commercially in the background. But I know it's like going to the gym, right? Last 6 days, I've been going to the gym every morning at 6 a.m. I hate getting up, hate going down there, hate the first set, hate the warm. Coffee tastes like shit. It's amazing coffee. But I'm such in a negative space when I get down there because I've woken up, I've not slept enough. But I know when I leave there, I feel $1 million. Podcast is quite similar to me. So I get a little bit of anxious coming in. it sometimes feels like a chore even this early on, but I know I love it. I know when I have this psychotherapy session, I get to leave here, I get to talk to you. You're an awesome guy. I get to listen to your story. I get to share my story. And that, where do you find that balance, do you think, with how do you make that decision of that's time to go now, or it's actually me having a bit of a lull, because as humans, that's very, very normal. You can't always stay up.
Yeah.
What goes up has to come down, you know, and we go up and down. It's human nature. Where do you think in your head that line is that once it's crossed, you're happy to go, right, park that, we're on to the next thing? Yep. Is there a line in your head? Is there a metric that you look at?
So it's always been, pre 2 years, my gut. Because ultimately, if your gut's saying no, whether the data or the logic is telling you otherwise, your gut's saying no, you're never going to turn up in the right way. And you can
go with your gut like that?
I think you have to. You have to honour it. Because, so what like 2.5 years ago, I was like, I've been doing this podcasting thing quite a long time. Like, I want to reinvent it, but I'm not in the position to, because my first child was on the way. So at that point, I really wanted to do a video podcast like this today. And I'd seen this Chase Jarvis live set up. Have you seen his podcast? I'm like, I want to do that. That is sick. And at that point, I was like, well, if I can't level up, I almost feel I'm now leveling down. And that was like not sitting well with me. So I sat down with the team and I was like, this is what I want to do, And then they put all the logical reasons in front of me, like, your date is good, this is happening, this is happening. I was like, oh, fine, I'll like keep doing it. The
pros outweigh the cons.
Yeah. And so I kind of carried on for a while. And then I was kind of caught in that place of like, I almost don't know how to stop because I now don't know what I'm doing because I'm in such a dark and bad place myself. So I carried on for probably 2 years. Then my gut said no, but it's because I wasn't in touch with my gut anymore. Like, my health was in a bad way. I wasn't sleeping. Business was challenging through the pandemic. You're just fighting every day. Like, you didn't know what was going to happen the next day in the pandemic, did you?
Yeah, it was scary, yeah.
So I wasn't in tune with my gut. And then when I went on to TRT and I came back to life, I was like, fuck the podcast, see you later. And then it was just as simple as I let the team know. Five days later, it was gone. And it was, you know, quite nice that it was coming up to the 10-year anniversary and that kind of stuff. So I was able to hang the boots up in what felt like a nice way.
Yeah, amazing way.
But
huge achievement as well, by the way. 10 years, 680, like
I'm pleased with that. I'm proud. Like, I've got no regrets. Yeah. I've got a bit of regret from the last 2 years, but I'm like, I can't change it. That's my life. That's my experience. I just got to move on. So I think you just got to trust your gut, but so few people are in touch with their gut because they're not doing things that they really want to do and they're in alignment with and they value anyway. So it's like, until you start to really do more things in your life that you really enjoy, you're passionate about, bring, you know, fun and happiness, your gut's just drifting in the wind. But because we're entrepreneurial, we're already in touch with our gut because we're already forging our own path. So it's kind of a bit easier for us. So people have to go on a journey to tune in first before they can then start to make different decisions. And that's why I think there's a bit of a incorrect narrative in the self-development space, which I'd say I've been in for 17 years. That's what I'm most passionate about, is that all of these books are telling you to do things. Go meditate, go journal, go to the gym, all these things. But most people don't have the fucking time to do any of it. So I always say to people, let's just strip everything back. Let's look at everything in your life that you do not like, do not want to do, is a waste of your time, you're not aligned with, because then you create space. Because you can't just keep putting more and more things on top of it. You just get stressed out, right? And then what ends up going?
Your mental health, your physical health, your this, your that.
So I'm like, let's step back, let's strip it all away, let's create space, which then usually creates clarity for people. Because then when you try things, you know whether they're going to work or not. So like, if you've got someone really busy with a mad load of stuff going down in their head, they've only really got 10 minutes, they're squeezing 10 minutes of meditation in, they're never going to get any benefits of meditation because they've not even got the real space to fit it in. And I was like that. Like, I was just like fitting meditation in. I was like waiting for the ROI. But now I've created space for it. It's been life-changing. And the depth that I've got from meditation, because I'm like, I'm ready to be present with it. I'm ready to give it space. So if people don't have the space to develop themselves, you'll never develop. So I think you've got to subtract before you add.
That sounds like something I need to be doing. But genuinely, I was just listening to you then. I thought, yeah, I should be doing that. I should be doing that. And I wonder how many people listen to this now that have overridden their gut instinct and got burnt? I bet it's quite high. Because my general rule of thumb, I've got 2 rules of thumb. I try and do commercial decisions with my head and personal decisions with my heart. Because when I mix them two, I've lost financially. Like, example, if I want to book a DJ to perform at the club, I book with my heart because I like that DJ. I grew up listening to him or that artist.
Yeah.
Everyone must like it.
Yeah.
But commercially, my head is going, you're an idiot. They haven't sold any records. They haven't done anything. They're selling out no shows. Don't do it. But I do it anyway. So that's one of the metrics I try and use. And the other thing, I guess, is when I'm dumping stuff or like stopping doing something, it all gets a bit overwhelming, doesn't it, when everything's going on? So I tend to try and sit back and go, right, is the good outweighing the bad? Is the good times outweighing the bad times? If that's still yes, then it's worth fighting for. If that's tipped over to no, then I might look to create some change. And I will apply that to, without sounding harsh, my relationship, my wife, my business, the people around me. So you might find they change every now and then because actually, are they on the same path of me? Do they value the same things I value? I'm not saying I'm not going to be friends with them anymore, but you're a product of your environment. So actually, if they're not following those same values, they're going to, if there's 5 of them thinking differently, I'm going to be the average of those guys, right? So or girls or whoever I'm with, I'm going to end up like them. So that's kind of like the metric I use. I don't always use it because I can't always make good decisions. I'm human. But so far, well, in the last sort of 4 years, it's kind of done me wonders. And I'm open and honest about it. Even like, you know, I'd even say to my wife, look, you know, this is great. We probably need to talk about this because at the moment it's not an issue, but I can see it that in 6 months it might become an issue. And rather than it becoming a chore, I'd rather deal with it so it doesn't. So at the moment I feel like life's too short. Anytime something becomes a chore, and I'm not on about like quit at the first hurdle or when something gets tough, run the other way. You've got to, but you also got to understand why it's tough, what's in your control, what's out of your control, what you can change. And I don't feel like a lot of people are breaking things down, like you said. They're making instant decisions, probably on their head, but the gut is quite an instant decision as well. So what do you do? So if I said to you, oh, hi mate, do you want to go into business? I've got this idea. Obviously, instantly your gut would have given you a feeling, right? A vibe up into your head. Is that, do you literally go with that? Or do you allow the brain to mull over it and weigh it up and, do you see what I mean?
So if it's strong enough, I'll say, that's not for me. It's not where I'm at right now. Or, you know,
literally you can decide that pretty quick like that. Because I tend to sleep on shit a lot.
If it's strong, if it's like, it's weak, I want to tune into that a little bit. I want to just give myself a couple of days. I'll just be like, mate, do you mind if I let you know in a couple of days? Just want a bit of time to think about it. And I think that's an honest, you know, fair answer. And then I'll just kind of tune into it. And, you know, they talk about this a lot in the business world. If it's not a hell yes, it has to be a no.
I recently read that. Amazing.
So now I'm like, and I've tuned back into that again. Now I've got my sense of clarity back. I'm like, if it's not a hell yeah, it's like when you said, do you want to come and do this podcast? I was like, hell yes. Love the production quality. Loved your first episode. You seem like a great guy. We think similarly. It was just a hell yes. But there's loads of podcasts I get. I'm like, so I have to be no. And that's just the barometer.
I like that.
Because the thing is if you walk through a half open door, you're going to miss the door that's wide open. And behind it, there's just really good things. There's only so much time in the day, especially for me now. I'm a dad with young kids. I don't work, you know, this is the longest work day I've done in a long time. Don't work more than, 6, 7, 8 hours a day.
The only reason I don't make those decisions sometimes that quickly, although sometimes I do, is I feel like emotion gets involved. If there's an emotional...
Whose emotion though?
My emotion, when I'm making a decision.
Okay.
So what I mean is if someone said something to you and you have to react to that, whether that's a decision or whatever, the reason sometimes I'll go away, sleep on it, not even reply straight away, I might read something and leave it, is because at that point in time, my ego's talking, my emotion's talking, even though is it my gut or is it my ego? Because they're quite blurred.
Yep, totally.
I feel, because intuitive is coming from the chimp, the this, that part of the brain, this part of the brain. Who's talking to me right now? Is it which tie is replying here?
So I'd potentially counter that and say, I think you'd be more in tune with it if you were moving slower in your life.
This goes back to creating space.
Yeah. So if there's not a lot of space, where is the gut barometer? You're maybe, because you're juggling so many different ideas, there's almost like this mixed up sense of what your gut is having to deal with. But if there's enough space in your life and something comes in and you can have a moment to like stand back and think about it, you're then able to move it on with that kind of clear guide. Mm-hmm. And that's only through personal experience. I've now created way more space in my life. Like my life is less busy. There's less stuff going on. I've only got the stuff in it.
The loop almost. If the answers get there, you kind of revert back to that, right? You're not creating enough space. You're going too fast. I like that. Might have to hire you as my life coach.
Sure. I'll let you know my day rate.
I was going to ask you something. There's a lot of conflicting information when it comes to nutrition out there, right?
Yep.
How much misinformation do you see floating around? When you, like with protein, with supplements, with the gym, with nutrition?
Loads. I think we all do. I think that's the hardest thing. When I do quite often polls on my Instagram just to get a steer on what people are thinking and feeling. And that's one of the number one things. People are just like, I'm just confused. And that's why it's almost like it's quite hard to sell your ideas sometimes, because you're like, do you know what you should all do? You should try and get 7 or 8 hours sleep. You should try and eat mainly whole foods. You should probably exercise a couple of times a week, carry around a 2-litre bottle of water, and try and avoid things that stress you out. That's like the 5-step hack, simple step to living a good life and being healthy. But then you layer on top of that, people are like, but what about keto? But what about this? Like, go and do the 5 things first, and then we can start have a debate about whether keto's right or whatever. And
goes back to the quick fix, though, isn't it? They don't want to do all of that.
Yeah,
they want you to go, if you take this will happen. If you use this, that will happen.
I think a lot of people are actually deluding themselves, because a lot of people do things 70% and then they feel they've completed it. Mm-hmm. So like, I need to sleep better. So you start to sleep a little bit better, and it's like, sleep completed it. Like, but you're sleeping 7 hours a night broken, you're still not feeling refreshed. You haven't completed sleep. There's 30% to go. So then now they're moving on to the other stuff. And it's like, what you're searching for is still in that 30% that you haven't completed. It's like, I eat a pretty good diet. I'm like, okay, talk me through it. And they're like, I'm like, reflect on that. Do you think that's quite good? I'm like, well, sometimes it's good. And I'm like, well, that's like me going into business one day and I'm like, sometimes I make money. Sometimes I'm able to pay the bills and the staff and all the rest of it. So I think people are often quite deluded because the basics are all staring at us in the face. We need to sleep 7 or 8 hours a night. We need to eat a lot of whole foods. And I think if people completed that a bit more, then they wouldn't even be searching for these, magic things that are floating around the internet and that celebrities are doing.
You're talking about sleep. I noticed you've got an Oura ring on.
I have. It's a recent addition.
Recent addition?
Yeah.
And the smartwatch activity tracking thing there?
Yeah, so just basically for heart rate and steps.
Got you. So there's my heart rate and steps.
Yep.
And I've got a Whoop on. Whoop, whoop. How are you finding the Oura ring?
I like it. It is early days. There's literally one reason why I got it.
Your sleep?
No, because I feel quite in tune with how to improve that.
Okay.
The benefit has been it's now tracking the inner workings of my sleep. So I'm quite enjoying that. The main thing is that when I was still trying to get back to full health, I was really struggling on days to work out where I'm at in terms of a readiness to like push myself a bit more in the business or go and do a hard workout, because I'd lost that inner sense of like, am I okay today? Like, am I all right? And I knew that the Oura ring gave you that kind of readiness score to do with your HRV, your blood oxygen, and one other marker. So I was like, actually, I think this could be kind of beneficial. So that's why I took the plunge. And I wish I'd done it sooner, because I think it would have really helped me, give me confidence that I was on the right path with my recovery, because my recovery was so slow, as you know. It's like, am I doing better today? Am I making progress? And then you kind of get a bit down in the dumps. And
do you think that data sometimes fucks with your head though? So I've got friends that have had a Whoop and they've chucked it off, taken it off and chucked it in the corner of the room. And I said, why? He said, well, because I'm up at, some of them are even in the military still. And they're like, well, I'm only going to get 2 hours sleep. I know that because I'm bloody jumping out of a plane in a parachute, and it's telling me I'm 1% recovered and I've got 50 miles yet to run with this on. I don't want to see it. It fucks in my head. So how does that affect you? If you get up and that tells you it's got 1% recovery, or I don't know how that works, but this says in percentages.
Yeah.
Say you get up and that's a red recovery, it's telling you to rest, and you know you've got to run a half marathon that day.
Yeah, but I don't have to run a half marathon that day.
I'm with you. But if you were, would that data fuck with your head?
I think it's a moot point because the guy in the military has no choice. That's his job.
But say I'm getting up and training tomorrow morning. You train every day, right?
No.
How often do you train?
2 to 3 times a week.
Would you have a worse workout if that told you weren't recovered? Would you just miss that day then, go another day?
Well, now I listen to it because I have struggled with when to know to train or not. Because with readjusting to the TRT, like some days I'm like, oh God, I feel like quite empty and gassed. But actually when I've done something, I've kind of felt okay. So it's been more of a head thing rather than a body thing. So I thought I'm going to use the data because it's there. Why not? I've not got a better guide. Now, it's different for people that are trying to train like 6 days a week or do all this mad stuff. So it's maybe helping them to balance their recovery. But from my experience on a personal level and knowing some of the character types that wear wearables, they're wanting it to justify their behavior anyway.
Got you.
And if they look at it and go, oh, my recovery's not been that good, but fuck it, I'm going to do it anyway because I've got anxiety that if I don't do it, I'm not making progress.
Yeah.
But I don't have to be that guy anymore. I train to literally just look and feel good,
you sound
be
very
fairly
content,
strong.
mate.
Yeah, like I know that if I
mildly
train,
jealous of it actually.
I know that if I train 2 to 3 days a week, I'll look and feel fine.
Yeah.
The rest of it is down to my sleep and diet. But because so many people are not getting those things in place, they're constantly chasing better aesthetics, better performance because they're not doing the basics right.
You have had some amazing names on your podcast.
Very grateful, yeah.
Is there any advice that you've received or been given on them that has changed the way you operate by one of those guests?
Oh, hugely. Yeah. I mean, it's one of the reasons I did it. I was like, if I do a podcast, I can connect to some of the brightest minds in the world.
That's why I'm doing it.
Yeah, like hopefully...
Is there one, though, that is in your mind where you think, fuck, that was a gem and I've been using that, I've changed my value with that, or I've changed the way I think?
There's one show that has always stuck out to me and I haven't been able to relive what I want from the show yet, but I'm going to start to try and do it.
Okay.
And the guy's called Martin Rooney. Okay. He's well known in the fitness industry, especially in America. And what he showed me is that the human body is able to produce an insane amount of energy and positivity and resilience if it chooses to. And when he came on my podcast, like, you know, he's thousands of miles away. And I was like, oh my God, I feel like he's in the room. I feel like he's put me...
Infectious.
Yeah, like every cell in my body came alive from him. And I was like, wow. I was like, I want to be that for other people. And in my line of work, that's a good thing because that's motivating, inspiring, etc. So I've always had that at the back of my mind that I want to be able to kind of bring that energy. And as someone working in the space that I do, going into the place that I'm now trying to move into with my work, I feel that's a hugely advantageous thing. And that's been one of the recent kind of personal development things for me is how do I create obscene levels of energy in my body because I've lived for 2 years without any. And that's what's got me deeper into kind of meditation and that kind of stuff.
The energy thing is an interesting piece because I feel like Americans are naturally a little bit more lively than us.
Definitely.
They're more animated.
Yeah.
You can, you know, there's a guy I spoke to that was selling some multi-level marketing thing. Yeah, not Herbalife, it was a different one. Maybe Body by Vi or something. And he was trying to like recruit me as such. Yeah. And I almost stopped taking the calls because when I took the call, I was like, where do I sign? The guy was insane. Yeah. The energy, like he'd get on the phone, I was thinking, fucking hell, this is it. I've got to do this. I don't even agree with the product. I don't agree with anything. But he was just so good. Yeah. I think we're not quite there in Britain with that, the way our energy is.
No, we're very prude.
I had the conversation with someone yesterday about this. I feel like we're quite negative as a nation.
Yep.
I might get slandered or shouted at saying this, but we like an underdog and we like to hate.
Yeah.
We like an underdog story and we like to hate. We don't really celebrate success, not the way that the States do.
No.
You know, and I was in LA a couple of years ago, and if you see a guy parked with a Ferrari or a Mustang or whatever's fancy out there, people are asking him what he does for a living, what she does for a living.
Yeah,
because
and they tell him,
genuinely
nice
interested.
car, man.
Yeah,
Like, wow.
yeah.
Whereas here, they're like, that guy must be a dick.
You park one here now, it's getting keyed. You're a drug dealer, or you're daddy's money, or there's something, some negative, some bring down. You know, look at boxers. You know, like, without getting too into it, but we've always loved Ricky Hatton because he's always been a bit of an underdog.
Yeah.
But as soon as some of the others got good and they're winning all the time, we find a reason to hate them. We hate Amir Khan. We now all hate AJ as a nation. Why? Because of one thing? Look at everything. Yeah. If you know what I mean, look at the whole picture. You don't know them as a person anyway. Look at them, what they've achieved in their sport, in their field. But it's a tough one. I try and keep people around me, like you said, that have the best I can, obviously, that have that energy, that positive energy, because it ignites me. Yeah. Really important, that, don't you think, as like a coach you are?
I wonder if it was like that 50 years ago, 100 years ago, because the media, I would say, does a very good job at picking apart and blowing up any negativity. Like if you go on any news app now, how much of it feels positive?
No, none of it.
Yeah, less than 5%. It's ridiculous. Yeah. So it's like, well, if that's all of the messaging, and that's been driving consumer narrative for a very long time, well, we're almost like programmed to just respond off that.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
Thrive off the negative.
Yeah. Is it naturally within our nature? I don't know.
Or is it nurture over the last decade or 5? I mean, I suppose you had newspapers in those days, but you didn't have it readily available in your hand. Like we walk around now, we're always connected. Can't really disconnect from it. Does fuck with your head, doesn't it?
It does, yeah. I've read the news. I mean, I read the news a bit in the pandemic to like, see what was going on and stuff. Yeah. But now I'm like, get out of my life.
Mate, there's something I wanted to ask you actually before we finish.
Yep.
There's a lot of hate for, let me get this right, like weight loss organisations. Like Weight Watchers, Slimming World, these kind of stuff. Do you think they deserve some of the negative they get, or do you think they're actually doing good?
Well, you said you're a data guy. If you looked at the data of how successful people are on the Weight Watchers plan, you'd be horrified because people are coming back and back and back and back. So they're not getting educated. They're not changing. The issue that I have with a lot of the weight loss stuff is the practices that they go by. They're not that research based. Like, is it Slim and Well that do the SINs points? And it's like,
I think so.
If you eat a ripe banana, it's so many SIMs, but if it's unripe, it's like less. And it's like,
or you can have as much rice as you want, but you can't have a chocolate bar or something.
What the fuck? What nutritionist are you working with to figure that shit out? So you got women going around going, I can't get, eat that vegetable because it's 3 SINs as a compared. It's absolutely ridiculous. So you're programming people to see food as good and bad. And then any time they eat something bad, there's guilt. And that's one of the worst kind of feelings to have on your own journey is like, I now feel guilty. And then you enter into self-loathing and then you kind of repeat this vicious cycle. And I would say that's definitely been more prolific for women than men because of the dieting culture, dieting industry. And I think they've long-term damaged a huge amount of people's level of self-worth through their kind of diet messaging. So
it's a bit of a control method as well. Like if you want to train your dog, how do you train it? You train it with food. You train it to know that that's bad, that's good, we're kind of doing that with humans. You're attaching a certain feeling or certain concept to a certain type of food. Whereas I've always been under the impression, I know sometimes I go through phases where I completely cut sugar out. That's because I have to cut it out to reintroduce it to find my balance again. I know my body and that's how I got to do it because I get too involved in something. But generally, I don't think there's a bad food group.
No.
You shouldn't ban any food group as a whole, I would say, from my personal experience. You just got to manage how you're having it in moderation, in balance, keep it within your kind of requirements and macros and all that kind of stuff. Whereas they're going, don't eat that. It's a sin.
Yeah.
You can't live like that.
It's bad. You're a bad person for eating it. It's like, okay. So now I can't go out on the weekend and enjoy myself. I'm going to be a bad person for having fun. Yeah, diet industry's got a lot to answer for.
Is there any regulation in the supplement industry? Or can anyone just package any shit and sell it?
The reality is anyone can package anything and sell it,
Wow.
Yeah.
So it's not governed by like finance, like FCA or anything like that? There's no like...
So like the control mechanism is largely kind of consumer managed, in that if you brought out a supplement line and I'm like, oh my God, look what Ty's doing, I can go to ASA, Advertising Standards Agency, and go, he's making unscrupulous claims, he hasn't got what's in it, and then they'll come and report you.
That's from an advertising perspective, right?
Yeah.
Not of actual.
But yeah, like I don't have to send my product to like a third party, and it's like, yeah, it's fit for human consumption. Now, part of that is because the manufacturer has gone through those checkpoints and be like, right, we're an ISO 5000 and whatever facility. What we make is kind of what it says on the label. So
they are technically then regulated, but just higher up, not
through
the person.
The manufacturer, yeah. But there are still some manufacturers. You can go and get some, you know.
If I bought a load of shit, put it in a tub, put a label on it and sold it, I guess until someone complains.
Yeah, you're cracking on.
Wow.
Yeah, because you could ship it out of your bedroom. You can create a
but it's a
website.
Edible, you're eating, you're putting it in your body.
Yeah.
I just presumed they would always have to go through some sort of check or some governing. You know, we used to import bottles of water from Turkey years ago. Mm-hmm. And mate, we had to send them to get tested, all sorts of stuff, because they were coming from out of the country.
Yeah.
But actually, if I probably bottled it here, just out of that tap and sold it, maybe no one would have checked it.
No.
I can't believe they don't check it.
So you have to do your homework, but I'd say the large majority are running through, you know, pretty legit contract manufacturing.
Quick one on supplements, because you're into nutrition.
Yeah.
Have we got, in your opinion, different deficiencies now from like 10, 20 years ago? Is there stuff that people should be taking as a bare minimum to be healthy? Stuff that maybe they can't physically eat that much of a food?
Yeah. First one's vitamin D, because we don't get outside
year
enough.
Round, do you reckon?
Yeah, pretty much year round, if you look at the data. Second one is probably magnesium.
Yeah.
A lot of people not sleeping enough, quite
I
stressed.
take both of those, yeah.
Highly athletic. Then the other ones tend to be around like diet inclination. So iron, calcium, selenium, B12 can be problems, again, depend on your diet inclination. So if anyone's worried, like you can just take a good quality multivitamin and probably hoover up like a lot of those deficiencies. You know, I do say good quality for a reason. So in the world of supplements, and magnesium is a really good example. Like if you take magnesium oxide, it's really, really poorly absorbed in the gut. So if you went into Holland and Barrett and you're like, oh, magnesium, £4 on a deal, it's probably magnesium oxide because it's just really shit, basically.
Cheap.
But if you take magnesium citrate or biglycinate that's got a way higher bioavailability, you're going to be paying 4 times the amount because the quality's there. The raw ingredient costs more. So it's not as simple as just being like, oh, it's got magnesium in it. Yeah, sweet. Like jog on. There's a huge quality component. So anything in the supermarket that's like real low level, it will help a bit, but some of those other quite important nutrients that we really don't get enough of, you're probably not going to get near sufficiency. Again, omega-3 is another one, not enough of us eat oily fish.
Yeah. So it's not like, you know, when you go into Boots and you've got, say, paracetamol, you could get a Boots own brand or you could get the really expensive brand and they actually got the same thing in them.
Yep.
So it's not like that with supplements.
No.
I'm with you. So you do really need to spend the money and get a better quality product.
With some stuff, yeah. Not with everything. It's not a blanket statement.
Yeah.
But you do need to do, you know, your research. It's like, for example, vitamin D is ideally needs to be with other cofactors like vitamin K2.
Yeah.
So if you're not getting that, then you know you're not getting as much of the absorption.
I've just upped my vitamin D. I didn't take it during the summer, but I always go through this stage. I have SAD, seasonal something disorder. Well, I think that's what it is.
Yep.
Every time I go from summer to winter, I just feel a bit like bit down, bit shit. Nothing feels good. Nothing tastes good. And every time I've researched it, they're sort of saying, up your vitamin D, get a something lamp, do this, do that. So I've just started taking 4,000 IU a day for the last, I think it's been like 3 weeks.
Yep.
I generally feel better. I don't know if that's placebo. I don't know if I've come out the other end of it anyway, but actually I'm happy. You'd say take year round. Maybe not that high dose, but vitamin D year round.
It's not too high a dose. Like, for example, in our product, there's 2,500 IUs a day. That's like a decent level.
Yeah.
I'd generally year round. But again, we've got to look at context. Like we might be talking to a gardener who's outside all the time. Probably going to be all right apart from the winter.
Yeah.
So context is, you know, really important. It has to be.
Yeah. What's next for you?
Got a book coming out, How to Live an Awesome Life.
Of course.
The time of recording this, it will be on pre-order. So if anyone wants to go and grab a copy, they can
Get
go
that
to
on
Amazon.
Amazon, wherever, yeah.
Amazon, yeah. Audible will be coming out.
When's it come out?
January the 5th is like distribution day.
And How to Live an Awesome Life, quick overcap. What are you doing there? Just life hacks? What you've
One
learned?
mission,
Yep.
helping people live a more awesome life and
Yep.
become a more awesome version of themselves. And there's 11 steps. So if you go through the book and follow the 11 steps, hopefully
You'll get some value at the other end.
you'll get some value at the other end of it. And it covers all areas of your life, from how you approach life to what you're eating, to how you're sleeping, to your career trajectory, to like your planning. So it's like a Swiss Army knife self-development book.
Wow.
Where I've put my sort of 16 years of coaching experience into it, because I always came at nutrition from the perspective that I just want to empower people with a tool to live a better life. And for me, it was a gateway drug. I lost weight, I felt better, I performed better. Like, it led to loads of positive things. So people always say to me, oh, how come you haven't written a nutrition book? But I've never been really motivated to go really deep, because nutrition for me was just one tool to live an awesome life.
Yeah.
So that's why I've written that book.
Sounds exciting.
Yeah, I'm excited.
I'm going to get myself a copy of that, I think.
I'll send you one.
Oh, look at that. Signed one, please.
I
I'll
can
still
do
buy
that.
one to support. I'll
Thanks.
have a signed one in case it does really well, and I can put it in my little... I'll still buy it to support, though, always. What if people want to find you, social media, where are you at? What's your handle?
Just Ben Coomber.
Ben Coomber. COOMBER.
That's the one. Yep.
Awesome. I wonder who's won that competition. I'm going to get it tallied up.
Yeah, we'll do it.
Thanks for coming on, mate.
Mate, it's been a
Appreciate it.
pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you.